Alright, and this week we actually get a 2-for-1 deal. We bring in the deck of many things. So now, first off, in this little nifty box, we get the reference book to the deck of many things. So we got like a quick reference book that you can use for the deck itself and everything. So I'll let people be able to pause and be able to read the contents. So like the deck of many things, customizing your deck, card meanings, divinatory uses, adventure spreads, and reading the cards. So then it goes into all the different types of cards that we got. So it goes into depth on like the good old deck of many things. So this is the reference itself, the reference book that you get with the actual deck and everything. So as you can see here, like it goes into actually like the basic spreads and stuff that you would look at for maybe like a typical tarot deck or whatever, or an oracle deck. So like people in witchcraft kind of know that. But if you're not familiar with that, those are used for divinatory purposes and everything. So you can check out the history on that, but that's like something like a deep delve into something that's not necessarily a topic for this channel. But so you can see now we get like different ideas for different spreads and everything for the actual cards. And so like we get the usual tables where you can like a D6 table here, you can roll and or pick like always. And so we get into the actual different descriptions of the actual cards. So like for instance, like right here we have balance and beast. Then we have coming up next is like the book and bridge. So this goes into depth. This reference kind of gives like I want to say in depth, but gets into the idea of the different cards and everything. So kind of going quickly through this reference book just to kind of get you an idea of like the actual artwork and stuff that that they use for the different cards. So like I said, it's this comes in like this neat little handy box and everything. And so this is the first part of the 2-for-1 deal that you get with this. So this one is probably going to be a little bit longer video as we get into two different aspects of this. And so like you're able to get this all together and everything. So now once we get into the actual reference book for this, I'll actually delve deep into like the history and stuff for this and everything. So this is just a quick reference book that you get in like the first half that it kind of details out like all the different cards that you can see that you get in the actual deck and everything. So like and you can see like the artwork itself is like awesome and everything. So they had like a decent artist here, so plug out to who did this and everything. So, and of course deck of many things is very ancient and everything, so like I'll get into the history pretty soon that like this how deck of many things has come across. Now next up after the reference is that we actually have like a good old box where we actually have like the whole deck itself that you can keep in nice little tray with the 3 different holdings for it. And so like then we have like the all the actual cards themselves and everything. So like you can see like a good old deck and like how thick it is, and it's got nice gold trim on it, and like you can see like the different cards that we just did reference for. So these are the actual cards, and on the back you can see like they have like a nice back artwork and everything. So that is actually the actual deck and everything, as I divvy this up with like as equal as possible. So that's the first half of the deck of many things. Now the second part of this is the actual book of many things. So now this is where it actually goes into depth on this deck and everything. So really in depth. So like as you can see now, we each have like each chapter for each individual card. So like the Fool, Key, Balance, Puzzle, Gem, Rogue, Sage, Fates, Knight, all the way through. So now we do start out the Fool, and like what it does is it actually gets into like the history. So like the deck in D&D. So it gets into the creation of the deck and everything. And in this side we can actually see like the different iterations. So now the deck of many things has basically been around since the beginning of D&D itself and everything. So you can see like it's been around for like 50 years. So because we had like first an advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and then you can see in here how it gets in a little blurb about how it was in the Dragon and Dungeon magazine. So now Dungeon magazines were pretty much like as the title entails, all about like dungeons and adventures and stuff. Dragon was more about like all the other types of like things, like maybe like adventuring in between adventures, or like a downtime between adventures, and so it explains that in here in the magazine. So like for like first and second editions type of deal. Then it has a little blurb here about like in third edition, and then fourth edition, and then it actually gets into like a description of like the fifth edition. So now it does describe like where to go next, and so this does give you like a dungeon master toolbox. It goes over like the chapters, and then of course it breaks it up into just the character creation options in these chapters as well. Like I said, each chapter is about a different, in a sense, a card and everything. And then you get into the celestial suite, so like you get into like the astrological phenomena, so like the 4 cards of that and everything. As I move that so people can actually see and everything, then you get into the actual adventure locations with those types of cards. Then further on you get into like the adversaries and rivals, and then it gets into like to finish this chapter off, a blurb on using this book and everything. So then you can see each chapter actually going into depth on like the different cards and everything, and preparing to use the deck as a narrative. So this, like I said, is a very in-depth book on how to explain the actual the cards themselves. Like whereas something like this here, like the reference book, is kind of just like a quick guide. So maybe you are finally starting to use the deck of many things in your campaign, and you you come across this, like, you know what, I want to kind of spice things up. I want to use the deck of many things. Let me get this and everything, and like kind of like get that randomization and everything. Now there are good cards and there are bad cards, sort of like in board games like Hero Quest. You have like treasure cards that you pull when you are searching for treasure. You have like good things where you can find gems and coins, but you also have bad things where you have like a wandering monster. It's that kind of same concept, but much more depth, because like a role-playing game like a D&D here can get much more in-depth than like a board game like Hero Quest can. Now, is necessarily one better than the other? Not necessarily. It all depends on like what you're into and everything. So, but this book, getting back to this book pretty much goes in depth on like all the different cards, and so like you can see, like I keep reiterating that, and it keeps telling like, oh hey, look, here's this chapter based on this card. Here's like information, and so like this book would be great for like a DM. Like, okay, like I want, like I said, I want to introduce this as something into my campaign. I've never done this. Now, in my 30 years of off and on again playing, like haven't really come across this. Now in my current campaign, we do have like we have kind of like the DM that is running our campaign has introduced at least the concept of this with like cards and everything. So I don't honestly, I'd have to ask her like if she's actually using this as inspiration, or is she's actually using the stuff from this itself. But like she's kind of using that concept and everything of the deck of many things to bring into our campaign, which is kind of cool. So once we're all done that campaign, I'll probably have to do a video like telling all the details about that as well. So like all the like the successes, the failures, the fun times, and like the great character interactions that we've had and everything. So, but back to this book, you can see like each chapter gets into like I keep reiterating, gets into like in a sense a different card, so different theme. And so like as we saw in the key, we can see that like each, in a sense, there's sections, and each section has like a overall arch and theme and everything. So now you can see we actually get into like different NPCs and stuff that we can use in the campaign. So it actually starts getting into stuff like that to be able to like, okay, here's great ideas for me to use the deck itself. So now, of course, you don't necessarily have to follow this verbatim. You can, but like it's all up to like you. So that's, I think, the greatest thing about like TTRPGs, especially D&D right here, is that you've got so many different options that like and so many different ways you can play, that there really isn't no right or wrong way to be able to play. It's just basically at the core of it, are you having fun? And so this is something that could add like a kind of like a sense of randomness. Maybe like you've been doing dungeon crawls like forever, and now you and maybe you've gotten into like a role-playing immersive type of campaign. You're kind of going on the other end of the spectrum. this could be something that you could do, something like that, that could build upon something like that. Now, I'm using those two extreme examples of pretty much like complete hack and slash and complete role playing immersions as examples, but like most times you're probably going to fall somewhere in between. Now, it does show here like the Solar Bastion, which is like one of the places that you can get into, as you can see, like in the corner over here, the Spelljammer Harbor. Now, this in a sense is linked to the Spelljammer campaign setting, and like I have done like a few videos on like the actual like the 3-book set that you can get for Spelljammer. Now, you don't necessarily need to run Spelljammer itself to be able to introduce this into a campaign. You can introduce this into any campaign: Greyhawk, Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, your own homebrewed world that you built yourself. And so we get and back to this, we can see that we actually get more NPCs and stuff that like that can be introduced. And so like different like dungeons and stuff that like ideas like, oh hey, here's like a plethora of ideas and ways to be able to use this deck and everything. So I would say the only limitation on being able to use this deck is pretty much your imagination and everything. So, and that's, I think, what is probably the strongest point of TTRPGs, especially D&D, is the limitless potential that you have in being able to play any type of game and everything. So you could be magic centric, like low power magic or whatever floats your boat and everything. There's so many different ways to play that there is no right and wrong way. The only way to play is to pretty much have fun, and so this adds into it. So like the purpose of this book is to give you ideas to be able to introduce this deck of many things into your campaign. And so this is the actual reference. This is why it's called the Book of Many Things, and it, as you can see, goes into the depths of Mordor itself to get you details on the actual deck yourself. Now, of course, again, you could just like pull out the deck and just kind of wing it and just like, okay, well, I'm going to use these and kind of like base stuff off of like what has become before my own like homebrew campaign set. And we're like, okay, well, I want to spice things up with the Forgotten Realms. I'm just going to kind of like pull out the deck and like, okay, you know what, I'm going to like pull out these 3 cards and like introduce these 3 cards and kind of like to kind of maybe spice things up and everything. So I'll reiterate that like the potential and the options for this are pretty much limitless. And so, as you can see, it definitely gives us a bunch of different NPCs and like monsters and stuff that you can use to be able to kind of facilitate that, in a sense, the introduction of this deck of many things. Now, you could just harken back to the cards. There are good cards and bad cards. You can introduce one, the other, or both, and like or any combination of just like some of the cards or all the cards. Basically, I'll pretty much end in this book. I'll say like it pretty much just ends up to you as DM, and maybe like if you know your players well enough, you know which cards to introduce at the right time and everything. So that is like pretty much the 2-for-1 special that you can get with like the Book of Many Things, which basically details in depth the whole deck itself. You get the little box here that the quick reference card book itself goes through, and like of course it could quite possibly like also double as like a quick DM screen, and it gives you quick reference to the books and everything. So, but the actual DM screen would be better as well. And so you actually like one last look at the actual cards, and it does come with like 3 different tray holders that you can get. And so you got pretty much the Deck of Many Things dealer himself and everything. So this is kind of like I think the closest concept that I've come across is like with this is probably playing through the Curse of Strahd with the Tarokka deck. So that's like another concept that you can use as well. So like kind of springboarding off of this to be able to use something like that, or vice versa. So this is a 2-for-1, like in a sense, a special that you can get. Book of Many Things, which basically describes the Deck of Many Things. As you can see, this kind of just like is able to like slide right into this as I fumble over it, making a fool of myself. But hey, there we go. Nice nifty little like cover for your Deck of Many Things with your reference book, your quick reference book, and your actual in-depth reference book. So this one is a 2-for-1 special for the Deck of Many Things.